All right, so Webflow Conf just happened. Super exciting, a lot of new releases and some things that we thought are going to be released that didn't. Let's talk about everything, and here's everything you need to know about the new Webflow. Starting with the new branding, Webflow now has a new logo and a new look. The logo I really like, and it incorporates three really cool concepts. The square represents HTML and the box model, so it's a box, and then we have the curvy one, which is for styling and CSS, and then the slash for JavaScript. I really like the idea and the new logo. I think it looks really sharp. But first, let's go and have a look at the dashboard. So the dashboard has also this new look, the items being on the side here, the menus, and it's also much faster. So if I click into a folder, it loads it really fast, and if I go back to all sites, it reloads that part also really fast. Anyway, now let's look at where we spend most of our time, and that is the new Webflow designer. As you see, I personally really like this new look. There are a few things I think Webflow should address. We'll talk about them, but generally I like the vibe, and it gives me a lot of VS Code vibe. It looks like a robust development tool, and you see the icons have been moved around, so we have new icons, but also some of them are somewhere else. For example, we had the style manager here, which is now placed here. We don't have the undo button. I really need this. Webflow, please bring this one back. I really like this hover. When you hover on the navigator, you see the lines, and generally the icons, I think they are nice. They are really sharp. It's the same designer, but with a new look and just some items being moved around. The more important thing here in the designer is the new possibilities, starting with one that I really like, and we were already using it, but with custom code, now we can do it natively in Webflow, and that is aspect ratio. So you can click on anything. You can have any div block, but mostly for images. We were using different aspect ratios, and you see now we have all these possibilities, but also custom aspect ratios, which is super cool. Next, you see if I hover on some elements, you see this purple icon comes up, and that is for variables, just similar to how Figma has it. Webflow has CSS, like native CSS variables. Without hard coding styles, we can now create these variables and reuse them across the site. They showed a really cool demo. As you see, like you can set some variables, and when you change them, it applies globally, and it's super cool. You can also mix them with some other things, which we'll talk about. We'll dig into variables in future videos. We also have this variable management panel. So here we can create new variables. For now, we have only color, size, and font family, but Webflow mentioned that they are going to add more variables here. The cool thing is it's available today. We can start using it. Another thing that they mentioned that is not out yet is custom CSS. I love this new feature. So it's supposed to come and be here, and with that you can basically write any CSS in Webflow. And what's really cool is that I believe you can connect that custom CSS to a variable, and then you can animate that variable. Basically, that means now we can animate anything, like any property. Previously, for example, we couldn't animate border radius. I believe we can do it with variables. Not sure. If somebody knows, please leave it in the comments. Next, we have 3D in Webflow using native Spline integration. This is by far my favorite feature, and apparently the entire community is going crazy about it. So using Spline, you can create 3D scenes and animations and really cool stuff. You can bring them in Webflow and then animate them using the Webflow interactions. So in this demo that Vlad showed, they have a bike, they are animating some stuff on page scroll. So you say, as the page scrolls, you pick some of those objects in your 3D scene. So you can specify what object or the entire thing, and you can just rotate it or move it or scale it, whatever you want to do, or even tie it to a mouse move. So as you see it in the demo, you can move the mouse, and with moving the mouse over the object also move the lighting. So you create this really cool lighting effect. What's not included, at least for yet, is other types of animation. So for example, now you can just choose objects and move, scale, rotate them around, but you can't, let's say, change color, or I don't know, maybe show and hide. But for now, it's still super cool. And those things that I said, you can still do them. It's just that you don't have the control in Webflow, which is not a big deal, but they will probably bring them into Webflow. Next, we have localization. I'm just looking at my notes. Localization was already announced. So that is when you want to have your site in different languages and serve your site to different countries with different assets. So different images for different languages and different text, obviously. It looks super cool. It also gives us a lot of SEO control, which is great. So this is a big reason for why not use like JavaScript solutions from, previously you could use Viglot, you can still, but with Webflow, everything is server-side rendered. So super great for SEO. The localization also has a new pricing page. So you have to pay per language, per site, per month. It can get expensive, but for my clients, I see that they gain a lot of value from, being able to provide their website in an entirely new language with all the SEO and all the controls that they need. So I think the pricing, it's fine. All right, next we have components. So components, as you see also here on my screen, they have a new look. I think it looks really clean. It's really nice. Much better than before, but they also announced something called slots. So with slots, you can basically add an empty place in a component and allow your clients or the designers to add other Webflow components or elements. So it's super powerful, allowing others to insert anything inside a component. This makes components to be superpower. It's not available yet, but I'm really excited about this one as well. I think it's going to make creating new pages much easier and faster, and potentially even allow my clients to do that. So instead of me creating a page, I will be creating component sets for them, and they can just put them next to each other, inside each other, nest them, add content, and now they have a new page. So this is also really cool. And they also showed a few cool updates to the Figma to Webflow plugin. So with that, you can build something in Figma, and soon you will be able to use the Figma variables and sync all of those into Webflow, which is really cool. So the changes that the designer might make in Figma, you don't have to manually update them in Webflow. You can just sync it, accept the new changes, and it overrides everything that you had imported. And that is also going to be a game changer. Unfortunately, it's not available yet, but soon it will be. And another update was DevLink. So previously, we could create a component in Webflow and export it to React. Now you can actually have a React component and import it back in Webflow, which is super cool. I can just imagine the possibilities this is going to bring. It's going to create a whole new aspect of the community, React and Webflow working together. So Webflow designers can bring them inside Webflow and also see a live preview. So it's not like previously having code in Webflow and not being able to see how it looks and needing to publish it. Now you have a live preview and you can change the properties of those React components in Webflow, basically style them. And I'm talking to a few friends to potentially make some React components so we can create videos on them, all the possibilities. Let's see what happens. If you're interested, let me know in the comments. All right, now let's move on and talk about a few look changes. The biggest one, the new homepage and the killer hero section. So it's super cool. You see, as I scroll, this 3D scene comes up. pretty interestingly, I tweeted about this. It kind of went viral. People were saying this is made with Spline. I thought it was made by with Spline. Somebody from Spline, I believe head of growth, replied that it was made in Spline. But then later on, an agency called Off Menu mentioned that it was built by them using WebGL. Probably it's probably WebGL because it's so performant. It's incredibly fast to load and smooth. I cannot just describe it. Just go and watch this yourself. I'm pretty sure your mind will be blown. There are a few other changes I want to also mention before going into the things that did not get released or they did not talk about. So if we go to the product menu, I noticed that we don't have the membership anymore here, and also not the logic. They are not discontinued, but they are not being developed actively anymore. We will see them in the all feature list, but they are not a part of the product, which they were. And I believe also memberships, it's now called user accounts. Yeah, maybe that is a better name, whatever. We have semi-new looks for these pages, not entirely, but it's still pretty cool to see. What's entirely new is the Webflow University, which I really dig. It's the new look. It's made by one and only Mackenzie, and it's like such a great job. Just look at this. You have two modes. You have actually four, because we have high contrast for light and dark mode, which is super cool. And then just look at this dashboard animation. It's so sweet. And of course, you have all the information you need. So tidy and so nice. Also, the Webflow pricing page has got a new redesign. I don't know how I feel about this. The pricing is still super complex. This is like one of the most commonly asked questions by people in the community that I see and my students, that what is the difference between all of these. I wish that they would refine some of these. They didn't. And also the localization that I talked about, the pricing is not directly here. So if you want to see the pricing, you have to go to the localization, and then you come here and it has its own pricing, which makes sense. What's not really great that we don't have things like style localization or customize element visibility in one of these. I mean, like paying almost $30 a month per language and not having the possibility to hide elements per language. Come on, this should be included. I'm like, you can keep the style localization, but come on, please bring this here. I'll be super happy to see that. All right, lastly, let's talk about things that they didn't announce, things that I wish they would, but they didn't. Starting with CMS limits. Webflow CMS is super powerful. It's awesome that we have all the possibilities to customize it, but I wish that they would change some limits. For example, how many CMS collections we can use on a page, or we can reference into one another. Webflow, come on, please change those limits in the next updates. The community was looking forward actively to have no limit on about these numbers. Next, we have AI, or the absence of AI. They imagine a tech company having a conference in 2023 and managing to have the entire conference and not use AI at all. Like, Webflow AI has already gotten announced, but they haven't released it yet. So I believe it's going to be like a co-pilot. So at the beginning, you will be able to ask it questions about, hey, how can I do this? How can I add margin? How can I put this element on top of that element? Things like this that will teach you and show you, and also refer you to maybe some documentations on Webflow University, but they didn't talk about it at all. We know it's coming, and honestly, I don't have a rush for it. It's not like something that I need in my today's workflow and it's missing. No, things like components and slots are much more important to me. Like the variables are much like more important. The custom CSS, those things are super like really great. And then just to top it all with Spline, you can just do so much more that something like AI is not really missing. But I'm pretty sure that they are cooking something really cool for us. All right, before I tell you about the last thing, look what I got. Just some Webflow merch that I literally they arrived just now as I was recording this video, and they have the old logo. It's not a big deal. It's not a tattoo or anything, right? All right, the last one is the Webflow interaction panel. I was personally really looking forward into seeing a new Webflow interaction engine entirely. Some community members were looking forward to seeing one based on GSAP maybe. Webflow didn't introduce that, but in the new interaction panel, you can do Spline now, which is a big deal, like the biggest thing announced, but also variables. So if I'm correct, you can bind a variable to a custom CSS or, to, let's say, border radius, and then we can animate that. So even though we don't have a completely brand new Webflow interaction panel, but it's now much more powerful and we can do much more with it. So generally, I'm happy with it. And so many people were saying we want a horizontal one. I'm not a big fan of it. I think the vertical one, it does make sense. At the end of the day, the interaction panel, it's fine, but for things like staggering text or CMS items, it sucks that we can't do that. I wish there was an option where we could say stagger these items, like all the children in this block, just stagger, animate them and animate X, Y, whatever it is. I hope they will announce something like that anytime soon. Until then, we are doing that with GSAP. Anyway, that was it. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you want a specific tutorial on any of these topics, and I will be on it. I'll be in the comments chatting with you. Have a good one, and bye-bye.